Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is Better Way with Kirsten Kimura podcast. And I'm super excited that you're here because I have another awesome guest with me. Actually, just now when I said Better Way with Kirsten Kimura, she came up with the name. Remember that, Jerrica? Of course you do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that was the time when I was like, I'm kind of sick and tired of the old name and it really didn't resonate with me before. And I asked my audience, does anybody have a better name? And Jerrica said, yes, that's the name. So anyways, so hi, Jerrica. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, Kirsten. How are
Oh,
you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad, also glad that it's Friday because I love the weekends
Yeah, of
mostly.
course.
Okay, so today we're going to talk to you about your transformation, um, and how you have gone from being pretty burnt out and quite miserable. I think that's the right way to put it, to now
Yes.
thriving. Because what you told me before, I'm like, I'm getting chills right now because you're doing so much better.
hmm
So, why don't you first tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, yeah. So, like we've already introduced, I'm Jerrica. I am 26, and my day job pretty much, I work as a receptionist at a bank, and I do art on the side, like digital art.
Oh, interesting. I thought that art is your main thing.
No, I actually have a day job.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've seen your art on
hmm
Instagram and it looks like, I mean, it is professional. So I was assuming that this is
Yeah.
what you do. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what were you dealing with, let's say last summer and fall? What are some of the health struggles that you were facing? And then how did you find my YouTube? Because this is where the change kind of started to happen for you.
Okay, so that is such a wild journey.
Okay, let's hear it.
Honestly, all of the symptoms, so everything came to a point in September of last year, but looking back, I think all of it maybe started 3 years before that.
Oh,
So, a little bit about my history. When I was going to college, of course, everyone's first year of college, you have freedom, you have friends, you're eating out all the time, you're staying up late at night and just not eating great. So, when I got in college, like when I started college, I was maybe 145 pounds.
mhm,
Maybe my first year of college, I got up to about 158.
mhm,
But at that time, I had always been skinny fat. Like before college, I had never worked out, never did a sport, nothing. Like the most I would work out is if I was required to for PE in
mhm.
class, but I never did it for pleasure.
Yeah.
So, of course, since I was already skinny fat and then I'm not very tall, I'm only 5'2". So, having weight on a frame that's so small, it shows a lot, even though it was like 10 pounds or so. And my husband, who was just my boyfriend at the time, he had always been an athlete. He's always like ran track, played basketball, soccer, like he's always been active. And like his new sport that he's picked up now is boxing. So when we were dating, I'd always see him like doing crunches, doing push-ups. He'll be like, "Okay, I'll see you later. I'm gonna go run 2 miles." And I just kind of watch him like, "Oh, you do too much. Like you're always exercising, you're obsessed." And after a while, it's one of those things that like you are who you hang around. You start picking up certain traits.
Sure.
And I started to feel like, oh, I'm with this guy. He's so fit. He lives such a healthy lifestyle. Like there are certain foods that he won't eat, or if he eats them, he won't eat them in excess. And look at me. I'm so fat and I'm out of shape and I can't even walk up a flight of stairs without like gasping for breath. And he's like running past me. Like I feel bad. I don't feel good.
Mhm.
I don't want to be in a situation where people are looking at us and like, why did he choose her? She's so fat. And, one day I remember I saw him doing some exercise. I think it may have been planks.
Mhm.
And I asked him, what's that exercise and how do you do it? And long story short, I got to a point like, I want you to teach me how to work out because I've gained so much weight. I want to lose it. And over time, he introduced me to like the fitness center at our university, and I started going there and I was working out. I was doing strength training and stuff at the time, but I didn't know a whole lot about it. So that's when I took to YouTube. And this was maybe 2015, 2016. So at the time, the main narrative, which still is now, was the easiest way to lose weight is a calorie deficit. You can either create this through increasing the amount you work out, like increase the amount of calories you burn, or decrease the calories you consume. So, me as an extremist, I was like, surely if I work out more and eat less at the same time, it should work faster, right?
Sure. Yep.
So I went through a phase where I was trying to only eat one meal a day.
Mm.
And of course, because I was going from overeating to significantly undereating, I lost that 10 pounds really fast. And I was also, at the same time, I picked up HIIT training
Mm.
because, high intensity interval training, you burn lots of calories really fast. So you don't have to work for long periods of time, like 30 minutes, and you've done the same amount of work that you could do in like an hour-long gym session.
Mm.
So I was being so crazy, and then I got these fast results. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like this worked. This worked. I've instantly lost like 15 pounds. Like I feel great, which I thought I felt great.
Okay.
But looking back, I spent most of the day starving because I was only eating one meal. I'd probably wake up, I'd go to the gym and like do HIIT for maybe an hour and a half or something. I think it started slow with like 30 minutes. Eventually, it got to an hour and a half. I wouldn't eat breakfast. I wouldn't eat lunch. My first meal would be at dinner time.
Mm.
And then I'd like try to only eat healthy. So only have veggies on my plate or like some chicken breast or something and try to eat super, super healthy. And this went on for a very long time. And I played with different things. I went from one meal a day, I did intermittent fasting. I started doing water fast where I would only like drink water for 3 days and then start eating again, and like all types of crazy diets. And then all of this continued until I think 2020 during lockdown and quarantine and everything during the pandemic. And when that happened, I had gotten my first job. So during that time, I kind of like my schedule changed. When I was in college, I was able to work out in the mornings and then I would just carry on, go to classes, and then I'd eat dinner at school. But now, since I was kind of like in the real world and like, having to plan my days and schedule things out, I started actually making breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So before the pandemic started, I had gotten to the point I understood a little bit more about macros. Like I didn't know as much about them as I do now, but I understood that it's not as simple as less calories. Like the calories you consume, what they are make a difference.
Sure.
So at first it would have been like, as long as I eat one meal a day, it could be fast food, but I ate one meal, so it's healthy. But during 2020, when I got a job, I started to understand, okay, it needs to at least be a balanced meal. So I started building them around like a healthy carb, some vegetables, and a nice lean protein. So I did that, but for a while it was going good. I think that's the year I also picked up running, and I stopped lifting as much because I didn't have access to a gym because I was working in a different state. I was in Washington D.C. and it's a pretty expensive city, and I was like it was my first job, so I couldn't afford a gym membership. So I was just running and just eating 3 meals a day, and that was keeping the weight off. Like I think, yeah, I stayed probably like 140 something, 150s, and just stayed there.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the pandemic happened, my entire routine got crazy because I was at home all day working from home. So some mornings I'd not eat breakfast or eat lunch because I wasn't spending as much energy.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't getting hungry as much. So on those days, I just like go for a run and only have a protein shake or only have a cup of coffee. And I noticed my weight started to go down again. Now, before this, I had been pretty consistent with my weight. I didn't think about it much. Like occasionally I'd be like, oh, I'm fat. I need to lose weight. But for the most part, I was satisfied with my weight.
Mhm.
But when I started accidentally losing more weight, then the feeling like that addiction came back of, oh, yeah, so like I'm not eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And like I'm running and just drinking this coffee. Like, oh, wow, that's making me lose weight again. I should keep
Right.
doing this.
Yeah.
And so I got into that loop again. So a little bit past that time, I think oh, and on top of that, I had started binge drinking because
Oh,
that's a whole other story, but like alcohol and waking up sick the next morning, that's not a recipe to want to eat anything either.
mm,
So all of those things together.
mhm.
But so that was pretty much that. When it got to past the pandemic, sometime later, I ended up getting married and then we moved to another state again. And this time I had like a new lifestyle change, like the married world and like being in a new city. I want to explore all the places. Like during the pandemic, I realized I had been very, very like restricted.
Mhm.
And once I was like back with my husband, because during that time, like between graduation and stuff, we were long distance because he graduated a year early and we moved to different places. So we're long distance for a while. So he hadn't seen like the changes to my body, like in person, or he hadn't seen like my habits changed in those years. So of course, when we first got back together, he's like, "Oh, you've lost a whole lot of weight since, I saw you 2 years ago. What have you been doing?" And I was explaining, oh, like, yeah, I only eat one meal a day, or some days I don't eat. And him being an athlete his whole life, he was like, "Why are you doing that? That's not good. That's not healthy. If you're working out, you should be eating."
Good. A
And
little reality check for you, a little tough love there.
yeah, but me at the time, I'm like, I've gotten so many results doing this. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not eating. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. It's working.
Yeah.
And he's like, you really shouldn't be doing that. And then I went to, you're a man. It's easy to lose weight as a man. It's harder to lose weight when you're a woman. So what works for you doesn't work for me. If I eat food, I'll gain weight. And there would be different moments throughout us being married where he'd say, you really should eat. And now, like there were so many little things. Like I could say, like, oh my gosh, I have such a headache. Oh, my stomach hurts so bad. He's like, you probably should eat something. No, that's not what it is.
Right, right. It's like when you I remember this too, like when you start getting these results, it's like and somebody else sees it and they actually have a
Mm-hmm.
healthy perspective, but we don't want to see it, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
it almost starts to feel like a threat when they're saying something, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like, no, I know better, or I have more willpower here. I know I had this thing like when my mom or my aunt or somebody tried to say, hey, don't you think you should be eating more? I'm like, no, hell no. Like I know what I'm doing. It's like like why would you know? But it's a thing. Like we are in our heads and we are so kind of, basically high on our results. And we just want
Mm-hmm.
them and we just ignore it, like you don't get it until something bad happens or
Yes.
something clicks that you change. Yeah.
Yes. So this is where it gets crazy. I kept saying, no, 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 I don't need food. I don't need to do this, blah, blah. You're wrong.
Mm,
So, of course, the things that I've learned along the way from discovering your channel and talking with you and learning from you is that everything's connected. It's not like your physical mindset, your physical state and your mental mindset, and your emotions, they're all connected.
mhm.
So, during that time, I didn't even understand that how much stress under eating and overtraining puts on your body.
Yeah.
And if you add like emotional stress to it, like having just gotten married, moving 9 hours away from my family to a new state, getting another job, because when we first moved here, I worked two jobs.
Mm. Yeah, talk about stress, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the lines, I don't know if it was all the stress on my body or the combination of drinking and stress, but I developed ulcer at some point. And
Sorry,
so for a while,
you cut off for a second. You developed what?
an ulcer, stomach
Ah,
ulcer.
okay. Hmm.
So for a while, like I was having this problem where like everything I ate would come back up. I couldn't even hold water without throwing it up. And I went to the doctor and they gave me antibiotics and it kind of got better, but like it felt like it never really got better. Like there was always this nagging pain in my stomach. And I noticed it wasn't as easy to not eat anymore because not eating would make it worse, which I learned later. Your body is trained, like your body knows when it wants to eat. So when it's getting close to time that it would eat, it starts creating stomach acid. If there's already had an ulcer there, that stomach acid would irritate it more because I wasn't eating.
Mm-hmm.
And during this time, like after all of this happened, my husband was still like, you really need to eat. Like, this is a problem. You're going to really ruin your health. You need to change this. And I'm like, no, you're crazy. You're crazy. You're wrong. And at some point, I decided to try it. I started eating more. And what you know, of course, all those symptoms went away.
Mm-hmm.
Like the ulcer finally healed. I stopped feeling like so sick and tired all the time. Like I felt like I had energy more.
Mm-hmm.
But then I started a new cycle. Then this is when I moved into binge eating because I went to the other extreme of, oh, I guess eating food isn't so bad. And I'm so healthy. I work out so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can eat what I want, right?
Yeah.
And then I would just eat and eat. I remember I would eat until I was absolutely like stuffed. And or I do this other like nervous eating where I'm hungry, but I'm too like distracted to sit down and make a meal. So I'll go get a handful of chips, not satisfied. Go get a handful of cookies, not satisfied. Go back in the fridge and get this other thing. And it was like binging.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to a point where I noticed, oh, my weight's creeping up again.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this could have been for two reasons. One, the binge eating, and two, my metabolism probably had already slowed down from all the years I spent under eating.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed like, oh, my weight's like coming back up. And I think at that time I had gotten back to working out. We moved to a new apartment. That apartment had a little fitness center. So
Mm-hmm.
I was going to that fitness center maybe 4 days a week. And which that was kind of a good place. I didn't state it at the beginning, but like in college, when I was doing all the HIIT training, I was doing that like 6 or 7 days a week. So
Wow.
like, and even when I was running in DC, I was still doing that 6 or 7 days a week. So when I got to the point like, okay, maybe it's okay to eat, I was like, okay, maybe it's okay to not work out so much. So I was only going to the fitness center like 4 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed like, oh, I'm going 4 days a week, but my weight's still going up. Maybe I'm like not, maybe I'm not going enough. So I added a fifth day and I did that for a few months. And then it's like, huh, my weight's still creeping up.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm not doing enough. And then at some point I realized, okay, I'm kind of eating too much. Like I started to notice I was binge eating.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, let me back up and stop eating so much. So I stopped eating as much, still gaining weight. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, let me stay in and also eat even less. Like this time, I cut out, like, I stopped eating white carbs. Like, so I would only have brown rice or wheat bread or whole grain bread. I stopped eating eggs because I thought, like, oh, eggs are going to give me high cholesterol. I stopped eating beef, pork, like all the meats. I would only eat chicken or fish. And
Yeah.
like, I was trying to completely stop eating fried foods. And then I was still going to the gym. I'm like, what's happening? Why do I keep gaining weight?
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness.
Like, yeah, I was still gaining weight. And so, and plus at this point, I started developing joint pain because all of the overtraining, the under eating, I
Mm-hmm.
was just desperate. And I'm like, I'm gaining so much weight. What's happening? And it's like so crazy. Even after all of that, and I cut like foods out again, my husband was like, I still think you're not eating enough. Like, I don't think you're ever eating enough or eating correctly. Like, these foods weren't the problem. The way you're eating, like everything you're doing is the problem, but I still refuse to listen. Like, You don't know what you're talking about. You're naturally skinny. You've never had to struggle with weight. You
Mm.
struggle to gain weight. We don't have the same problems.
Mhm. It is irritating, right? Like,
Yeah.
but and also the joint pain I wanted to mention. I mean, you took out the most nutrient dense foods from your menu,
Hmm.
right? So there you have it.
Yeah. And it's so crazy. Like the things I know now, looking back, I'm like, are you crazy? I want to shake my past self. Like, are you crazy?
What are you doing?
You need these foods. But I
Yeah.
didn't know. I didn't know. And so now we're that was a lot of background to get to the point that now we're like, fast forward 2023.
Mhm.
And so during this time, some more stressful stuff has happened. Like we moved again, we bought a house. And so another story about that is like, did not completely understand all of the finances and things that go into having a house. So
Mm.
there was a while of like money stress and like
Sure.
arguing, just adjusting to this like new lifestyle. But somewhere around 2023, I think I had gotten to a point where in those years, I'm like, okay, my weight keeps creeping up. Maybe I subscribe to that same idea of I'm just getting old. Our metabolism slows down when we get old.
At
I mean, I
25 years
guess
old?
it's
25 years
like,
old?
oh, I'm close to 30. I guess I'm getting old or something. Maybe my metabolism's broken.
Oh my God.
Like maybe it's slow. So I just stopped trying. Like I was still working out, but I kind of had given up. Like, well, no matter what I do, it's just not going to go away. But the way I'm working out is at least keeping it from climbing anymore. So
Mhm.
I guess this is just, we're going to stay right here.
Mhm.
And I just kept doing it until it went from, I started getting new symptoms.
Mhm.
So at first I had noticed I had gained some weight, I had some joint pain, but I just kind of chalked it off to my metabolism is slow and I'm working out a lot. So my joints are achy. But then I started to get other symptoms like I was waking up drenched in sweat at night. Like, and it wasn't, I'm a warm person. Like, I'm a warm sleeper. Always have been, but like, I've never woken up wet, like soaking wet. And I'm like, this is weird. And it would happen like almost every single night. And this went on for a few months. So I'm like, that's weird. Are these like hot flashes?
Mhm.
This is really weird.
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the lines, my period started being weird. I've never had any problems with my period ever. It's been normal since I got my very first one.
Mhm.
But all of a sudden, it would be this thing where it would come 2 weeks early, or it'll come 2 weeks late, or it wouldn't come at all. And it would just like, it was sporadic. So I was confused about that. Then I noticed like my skin was more dry than usual. Like my skin was always dry, my scalp was flaky. I was noticing that my hair was starting to thin.
Mhm.
And, I'm putting all of these things together like, okay, this kind of seems like it may be hormonal. Like when I Google it, everything shows like perimenopause or like, something along the lines of having to do with hormones. So before I got to this point, I switched my birth control because I'm like, maybe my birth control is doing something weird. Let me switch to a different one. And when I switched to a different one and that didn't resolve it, I'm like, okay, something is going on like with me. So then I went to a doctor and I had all of this blood work run. And the weird thing to me was like, I was low in so many different vitamins and nutrients. Like it was low B12, low vitamin C, low vitamin D, low testosterone, low progesterone, low estrogen. Um, my white blood cell count was low. My red blood cell count was low. Like everything was low. Like I was anemic and immunocompromised. Like it was low iron, low ferritin, all of these things. And then the weirdest thing, I had a high creatinine. So I started doing a little bit of Googling and I'm like, what's creatinine? Like, what is this? And long story short, Google was like, it's a byproduct that your body creates after muscle has been broken down. And I'm like, why is that elevated? Why is it so high?
Mhm.
But looking back, it's all the constant working out, working out, working out, working out, no recovery
Yeah. And no food.
and no food.
Yeah.
And that was probably part of the reason with all the vitamin deficiencies too. So when all of this happened, I was wondering, like, what do I do? Like, oh, my hormones are low, so this is why I'm having all these symptoms. What do I do? And the doctor told me, she said, you're going to have to get on hormone replacement therapy. And I was like, what? Like, that's crazy. And she's like, yeah, you're going to have to come to the office like 2 days a week or at least 1 day a week or something. You're going to get an injection. And like, I'm asking her questions like, is that the only option? Like, she didn't even ask me what my lifestyle was.
Mm.
She didn't ask me any questions. She was just like, your hormones are low. This is how you fix it. And I was like, surely that can be the answer. Like, then I kind of did a little bit of research about hormone replacement therapy. And it's kind of like, if I started it, it's something I would have to do for the rest of my life. And I'm like, there's no way. There's no way that this is the only option. So that's when I started researching and discovered you. When I was looking up alternative ways to increase, like, fix your hormones. And like every video I clicked on, almost every single video was talking about hormone replacement therapy. And it had all of these ladies who were actually older or actually suffered for a reason that like they had to do it. So
Mm.
like they had a hysterectomy or they were fighting cancer or they had a reason why their body wasn't producing the hormones the same way. And like, well, that doesn't help me, but it's like all the videos were like, oh yeah, I did this and it changed my life. And I'm like, I don't want to hear a video telling me to do it. I want to hear a video that's telling me another way.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy, all of the digging I had to do until I found your video. And I think it was a video about how to increase testosterone naturally. And then it was talking about like diet and exercise, of course. But then I was like, oh, that was so informative. Like, I never knew that. And I think I just started clicking on all of your videos. And the more I watched them, the more it was putting the entire picture together. Because it went from, okay, this is how you fix your hormones. Then I found a video about cortisol and the fact that it is a hormone that throws off your sex hormones. And I'm like, and then I think there was a video about overtraining. And then when I put it all together, I was like, wow, have I been like increasing my cortisol levels all this time? And this is what wrecked my metabolism and me eating less food has caused all these vitamin deficiencies. Like, wow, is that what's happening? And that's when I like reached out and commented on one of your videos about how helpful it was. And that moment was like, it lit a fire because I think when I started working with you, because my first picture, my day one picture that I always post to compare progress, I remember that day I looked in the mirror and I was like, I hate it. I absolutely hated what I saw. I didn't even recognize myself. Like, it was kind of like this defeated feeling of how did I get here? What happened? Everything was going so great. And now, like, look at me. And I used to say, like, oh, I'm so healthy. I work out so much. I'll never get fat. I'll never do this. And I thought I was doing everything right. I wasn't eating any of the bad stuff. I wasn't eating at all.
Which was
How did I gain
part of,
weight? What's the problem?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my God, that's so much. And you told me before we started recording, you told me that you actually had not seen this type of information at all, or
Hmm.
had never heard about this at all,
Never.
which is it's crazy, right? Because
Hmm.
we know now what the truth is, but
Hmm.
still the diet culture is like so big and so strong, and there's like millions of dollars behind it, so that message is always stronger. And I feel like
Hmm.
they always play on our insecurities, okay, women
Yes.
always lose weight, and then they make us feel worse, right? See, this is why
Hmm.
you need my product, this is why you need to kick out all these foods, this you need to buy diet plan,
Yes.
whatever. And it's really crazy, you have to really dig deep to find the right solutions, because what you see
Hmm.
in mainstream media is not what we actually need.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, so then you reached out. I remember you left me a comment and we started talking a little
Hmm.
bit. So if I remember correctly, we did like one call, right? So we
Hmm.
talked a little bit
Yes.
about your situation. And I probably told you the same things that I just said in the video, that, hey, we need to turn these things around and have to start eating more. Probably told your husband's like, why do you trust this random chick on YouTube? Even though I've been telling you this like for
Yes.
years now. Okay, so when we got on this call and we talked, like, what were your first thoughts? Was it like, holy shit, it's scary, I have to start eating more? Or was it like, okay, that makes sense, I'm gonna give it a try?
It was a bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
So because I had looked at so many of your videos and also had did some research on those topics outside of your videos,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, mainstream media tells me to eat less, but science actually tells me I do need to eat more. Like based on how my body works, I am under eating and causing these problems.
Yeah.
But it still was that fear of the eat less to lose weight was so deeply ingrained in my mind that I thought surely like if I'm eating less now and my metabolism is so slow that I'm gaining weight eating less, I'm gonna be big as a house if I start eating the right amount of food again. Like I'm just gonna end up being a 300 pounds or something.
Right.
I don't know. So I was very nervous about it, but I had also seen your videos that you came from a background of overtraining.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, Kirsten was experiencing the exact same thing I was experiencing and she recovered. So maybe it does work. Like all the solutions I did before now were like quick fixes, like how do I lose weight as quick as possible? And this one seems like it's going to take a longer time, but from what I'm reading, the longer it takes you to lose the weight, the more sustainable it will be.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to trust you because I'm like, well, Chris has always told me to stop under eating, and now Kirsten is saying I'm under eating, so maybe it's true.
Right. Can't ignore it anymore, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then you started gradually increasing your calorie intake, right? And
Mhm.
you also make some changes to your workout routine. You want to tell us a little bit
Mhm.
about what that looks like and the calorie increase?
Yes. Yes. So I think at the time when we met, I was still working out 5 or 6, anywhere from 4 to 6 days a week. So
Mm-hmm.
still a little bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
And most of that was running or hit training. I was doing some lifting as well, but it was more like it wasn't proper lifting. I mean, it's not what I'm doing now. It was more like circuit training,
Mm-hmm.
what I was doing at first. And so it was so crazy. The first thing you told me, like, you need to bring some of those days down. 3 lifting days, and I want you to cut out the running and do walking instead. And my first thought was, walking? How am I going to burn any calories doing that? Because
Right.
I was still in that obsessive mindset of I have to burn as many calories as possible to lose weight.
Yeah.
So I think I started noticing like the changes, like health changes and like mental changes from doing that first before I noticed anything physical.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I noticed is doing less high intensity working out and doing less gym days, my joint pain started to go away. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then I noticed I started to have more energy because I wasn't like constantly overtraining. So my first thoughts were like, okay, I'm not losing any weight, but I do feel better. I'm starting to feel better. There may be something to this after all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So it started to feel better. Energy came back. Remember that, right? And
Hmm.
then as a result of lifting and you dropped the cardio, I think you kept one running day, didn't you?
Hmm.
Because you wanted,
Hmm.
the people that you were
Yeah.
running with. I was like,
Hmm.
okay, that's fine as long as you don't completely overdo it. Um,
Hmm.
then you started lifting more, and then your body really started to change, right?
Hmm.
And
Yes.
I mean, you have posted this on Instagram. I don't know if your account is public or if it's private, but you post them every now and then. If it's public, I can drop it in the show
Uh-huh.
notes so people can check
Yeah.
it out. And also in the Fit and Fueled Facebook group, I've shared a couple of times like how you really have changed, and
Hmm.
it has been so amazing. I mean, the transformation has been real, and it happened by first increasing your calories. And it's so mind
Hmm.
blowing for a lot of people. They don't think that it's possible. Like that's not
Yes.
the logic says, right? And that's not what we ever
Hmm.
hear. Yeah. So you increase your calories up. So I think at your lowest point, you probably didn't even know what your calories were like, but if you had like a one day
Mm-hmm.
a meal and that was all vegetables, well, couldn't be more than like maybe less than 1,000 calories, definitely.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
how high did you increase them?
So I think so starting off, I know our plan was just to start eating at maintenance.
Hmm.
And I think maintenance, I think I was eating at least 2,000 calories a day,
Hmm.
which before that, like we said, I was probably eating 1,000 or less.
Mm.
So that's when I started noticing, like, even though the reverse diet phase wasn't to lose weight,
Hmm.
noticed like just increasing my calories, I just started losing weight, like not doing anything crazy in the gym, not adding anything extra, just increasing the food I was eating. I started to like lose weight, which was so crazy to me.
Wild. Yeah. 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 Some people are lucky like that. So not everybody,
Hmm.
that's what I want to be like super clear because I do talk about reverse dieting a lot. So reverse
Hmm.
dieting is not a guarantee for weight loss, but it happens to about one third of people, or like about
Hmm.
30% of people who are lucky you were one of them. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
This probably is a sign that your body was just so depleted and under so much like tremendous stress that
Hmm.
it needed to be healed that way. And that took the stress response down. So you started letting go of
Hmm.
the inflammation and water retention and all that.
Hmm.
Okay, so and then you were eating at 2,000 calories, but I think you ate actually more than that at some point.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I was gonna get to that. So that was
Yeah.
the reverse diet phase, and then at some point you told me like, okay, it's good that you're consistently eating this, but
Hmm.
we need to get those higher.
Hmm.
And I think ideally we wanted to try to get it to 2,500. I
Hmm.
think some days I was able to hit that, but because I think I was still coming from that history of under eating,
Hmm.
my appetite just would not allow for
Sure.
2,500 most days.
Yeah.
But I was pretty much getting 2,300, 2,400. Like they were up significantly.
Right. Yeah, and you were
Hmm.
maintaining your weight. And again, you said you're 5'2", right? Eating
Hmm.
like 2,300 calories. For a lot of women,
Hmm.
this is like, this is what I eat in 2 days, right?
Hmm.
And I gain weight, just like where we
Yes.
were at one point, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so then you stayed at those higher calories for how long before you started cutting?
6 months.
6 months. Very good. Excellent. So
Hmm.
again, this is, I usually say at least 4 months, but if you
Hmm.
can have a little more patience, 6 months is better. And of
Hmm.
course, longer is better. But then you started to cut. So what did that look like for you? And this is what you're doing right now as well.
Yes.
Mhm.
So that cut, which um which is crazy. I think we only cut about 400 calories, so that still left me at about 1,900.
Mhm.
And the crazy thing to me is like a cut for me was, I remember when I used to think like a cut was like 1,400 calories, 1,200 calories, and I would be like, oh my gosh, I've already eaten 1,200 calories and there's still half of a day left and I'm starving.
Yeah, right? Yep.
And it's like now on this cut, I get hungry, but it's not like starving. Like, of course, I get more hungry than when I was eating 2,300,
Yeah, absolutely.
but it's just enough to be like, you know, I can't wait until my next time to eat, like,
Mhm.
or like honestly, because my relationship with food has changed,
Mhm.
and I just know like, oh, if I'm hungry, I can have a snack, but let it be a healthy snack. I'm gonna eat some apple slices or something, and
Mhm.
it'll hold me until my next meal window.
Mhm.
And like, it's just so crazy. So a couple of things I've learned. One, since I've been lifting so much, and like this is the first time I've ever lifted and eaten the correct amount of protein while lifting.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah,
I've done it in the past, but I was doing it while under eating, so I never got results.
sure.
And the craziest thing to me was how fast I can put on muscle. I never knew that I could build muscle so fast. And now it makes me understand, like, of course genetics play a role in some things, but I almost feel like my whole life I've been training like a marathon runner, but I
Mhm.
actually have the genetics of a power lifter.
Mm.
You
Right?
know, my
Mhm.
genetics just don't want me to be small. Like I'm short in stature,
Right.
but I am not tiny.
Yeah.
I'm on the broader side, but it's good because I was meant to lift weights.
Yeah.
And I noticed that I enjoy lifting weights so much more. Like running, I originally picked up running to lose weight.
Mhm.
So like I still like it now, now that my relationship with it is different. Now I joined a running club, so I enjoy like the social aspect of meeting up with these people and getting a run in together and getting to talk and do those things.
Mhm.
But now that I've started lifting and I'm seeing the results and I'm doing it the correct way, I'm like, lifting is my baby. That's my sport. That's my thing. I'm good at it.
Yeah, you are. I mean, it didn't take you very long until you got to like very close to your body weight or even body weight that you're squatting, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I gotta say, this was quick considering that you didn't have like a ton of experience. Um,
Hmm.
for me, it took a lot longer to get to my body weight, but we're definitely shaped as well. But
Yeah.
I just
Hmm.
gotta say, like, it's you really, I think you really are built for that. And then for the longest time, you tried to do something that wasn't so natural for you.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's like, even when I was skinny, I was always heavy. I've always been heavy. No
Hmm.
matter how lean I look on the scale, the number is always a bigger number than what I look like.
Hmm.
So that just showed me like I've just been trying to do the wrong thing because society has fed me these ideas that women are supposed to be petite and fragile and
Yeah.
we're not supposed to eat a lot and we're supposed to do all of this and be so dainty. And now I'm like, no, I want to be strong. I want to be powerful.
So good, right? Do you notice that your
Yeah.
mindset has changed that way too, that you have like a lot more confidence now than you did before? Yeah. Where do you think it comes
So
from?
much more.
Where do you think it
I
comes from?
know I know that it's come from all of this like learning. One, I feel like I'm doing what my body's made for now. I'm working with my body and not against it.
Mhm.
So I think for me personally, I got a lot of confidence. One, I look better, and most importantly, I feel better.
Mhm.
And like, certain things like because I've gotten better at lifting, like my goals have shifted. Now I'm more focused on, oh wow, I'm so strong. So now I want to see how strong I am. I want to
Mhm.
keep hitting PRs and doing this stuff. So now I'm more obsessed with how strong I can become than how small I can become.
Mhm. Okay, that's awesome. That's definitely better.
Hmm.
Although even with this, you can go overboard, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but overall, it is a lot healthier, and I find that it's so much more like empowering mindset too.
Hmm.
It's like
Yes.
I'm not here to like, so that everybody can look at me and see like I'm so pretty and small. I mean, you're still
Yeah.
pretty, but you don't have to be like petite. And instead
Hmm.
you're like strong and confident. So how have these changes showed up in your life outside of the gym too? Let's say maybe your relationships, maybe your work, whatever it might be.
Well, one thing I noticed, okay, so when I was in the phase of like wanting to be as small as possible and being a part of diet culture and all of this, I noticed there was like it was always this constant like anxiety in the back of my mind. I was always worried about how many calories am I eating? Like this restaurant doesn't have the calories on the meals. Like I don't know how much this is, or like obsessively working out. Like I used to be upset if a friend would text me and ask to hang out because I'm like, I can't hang out with you. This is my workout day. We can't hang out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so much stress, like always thinking about like, oh, I ate that. My weight's gonna go up on the scale tomorrow. Or like, especially when I was doing like the one meal a day, I would feel so defeated if I ended up eating more than one meal. Like I've ruined it all. Gonna get fat. Like I don't feel any of that pressure anymore
Mm-hmm.
at all. Like now, because I understand that I'm not gonna gain weight just by looking at food or just by having one little snack. I don't freak out when I see the scale move because I know there are other things that are influencing my weight that aren't just fat.
Mm-hmm.
So now I understand that water can fluctuate and I understand that my worth isn't tied to my weight
Yeah.
because aside from like the less stress, like I have more free time to hang out with friends now because I'm not working out like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I also noticed that it's like I used to think being skinny would solve all my problems. If I could get down to like BMI says I should be 120. If I could get to 120, my life would be perfect. I'd be so healthy. I'll be so popular. Everything like will just fall into place.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm realizing I'm still significantly heavier than that weight. I'm even farther from that weight than I was when I started.
Mhm.
But my life has gotten significantly better. Like I'm learning all the mindset stuff behind it. Like
Mhm.
happiness isn't tied to a number on the scale. You create the happiness and you're like your life and how you live. Like that's what's most important. Like health, being healthy is so that you can have a better life, not that you'll have a better life because you became healthy. Like
Mhm.
I'm
Or
probably
because
explaining it so weird, but
no, I get it. Like it's not like, yeah, the quality of your life is not determined by the scale necessarily, right? It really shouldn't
mm,
be this way. Yeah, yeah.
no, not at all.
No, I totally agree with you. And it takes sometimes it takes some time to come to this conclusion. And a lot of people have to go through ups and downs and still try that maybe if I lose 10 more pounds, maybe I will be super happy. And then, it's
Hmm.
not always the case. I think it can add confidence. Everybody feels
Yes.
better when the clothes fit better. They can wear something cute that they couldn't before.
Hmm.
See muscle. Yeah, of course, this does give you confidence. But it's not
Hmm.
like this is the only key to like everlasting happiness.
Hmm.
It's not it. Yeah.
Yes.
And one more thing I want to ask you about is that you told me before that you haven't gotten your hormones tested again, but
Hmm.
you can tell that things are better, right?
Yes.
You don't, and I agree, like you don't even necessarily have to like check them, test them. You can tell. So what are the
Hmm.
signs that tell you that your hormonal health is better now?
So there are so many signs, and now I know it's not just in my head because other people have commented. Like, for instance, I've noticed friends or coworkers have been telling me like your skin's glowing, like you're beaming. Are you pregnant? And I'm like, no, 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 I'm not. But or like certain things, like I used to have dry, flaky scalp, and I was having hair loss. That's not happening anymore. At some point, I actually completely lost my period.
Uh-huh.
It came back. It's normal. I don't have any trouble, and even more so, that my periods are better than they used to be. Like I feel like I used to have so much cramping, and I used to feel awful, and now my period is just another day. Like, oh, nothing's changed. I still feel great.
Awesome. That's so good.
Like, yeah, sex drive has returned. I overall just feel happier. I have less anxiety. I have less depression. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like there are a lot of days where I just felt more negative and gloomy. Like, if a minor inconvenience could happen that day, that one thing ruined my entire day.
Mhm.
And it was just kind of this overall feeling of, oh, life is terrible. Everything always goes wrong for me. And
Yeah.
now I'm able, like, mentally, I just bounce back from things like, oh, this one thing isn't going to ruin my whole day. Or, I just feel better. I feel so much better to the point my husband always comments. He's like, wow, who knew we needed to do was give you some food?
Right.
Like I've been saying for years. Cause like he's like, you're just bouncing off the walls. Like I could come home from the gym and then still go like do some gardening at the house, or
Mhm.
like start cleaning the house because I have so much extra energy. Like the gym used to make me feel tired and drained, and now I feel like recharged after going to the gym.
I mean, it sounds like it's like you woke up, right? You're like
Hmm.
hibernating somewhere, recharging.
Yeah,
And now you're like, all right, there's a whole big life out there. I can enjoy that.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So to finish this episode today, what would you tell let's say somebody who is in a place where you were, what would we say, 2 years
Hmm.
ago? What would you say?
Yeah. First of all, I say go find Kirsten. Go find her, pull up all her content, reach out to her. She can help you. And literally just let them know that diet culture isn't the answer. Like it's not. Just encourage them like they need to do a little bit more research and realize like so much goes into eating. Like your fuel, like your food is your fuel, and what you're putting in your body and how you're treating your body determines how you're going to feel. If you don't put enough fuel in, or if you put bad fuel in, you're going to get bad results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
That's how it is. Well, this has been so awesome. I really appreciate you taking your time. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up today's episode?
No, I just want to thank you for having me.
Yes,
It's such
of
an
course.
honor.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much, and have a really, really nice weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.